I'm going to introduce Jess Eversole and his lovely wife, who's in the audience here with us, and Ted. I love Ted's last name, Corbett. Ted Corbett. Give Ted a round of applause and Jess. So from what I understand, Jess, you're the geek or the tech guy, and Ted is the biz dev guy. So either way, we're looking forward to their presentation. I think you're all wired up.
Check.
So let's.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
So let's give them a good 1 million cups welcome this morning.
You know, straight to it, because I've got a timekeeper in the back. 1 billion websites. So, and that's just PHP. But PHP is the leader in the market, in the web server side market. I'm not sure how many people here have heard of PHP, but that's what got Facebook started. So, next. So we care a lot about PHP, it's part of our company, but guess who else cares about it? Hackers. And it should be no surprise that 30,000 websites a day have malicious files uploaded to them, and a lot of those are PHP websites. Within this group, we also care and initially are going after the WordPress market. I'm not sure how many people in here have heard of WordPress, but it's the 900-pound gorilla. It's surprising. So it amounts to about 500 million websites run WordPress, which is pretty staggering. And it should come as no surprise that 90% of hacked CMSs, which is content management systems, is what WordPress is in 2018. So we have been working for a while on a website security, website security package for WordPress. And PHP website security continues to grow. And our primary core tool is what's called a web application file integrity monitor. Next. So and we call that a weapon. So what is it? Let's just say we had, for Star Trek fans here, an evil Captain Kirk beam a device into your house that would scan your entire house for all the stuff it cares about, and then be able to beam out things that it wanted. And you would never know it's there. How would you know that device is there? That's what hackers do. One of their favorite things to do is to put a malicious file on your site, and once they get in, if you don't know they're there, they can have a lot of fun with your website, exfiltrate data, use it for malicious purposes. And one of your key tools if a hacker gets in on your site, and you can't prevent that 100%, what you can do is detect it. So File Integrity Monitor detects whether bad files are there, and it does it by knowing what used to be there and comparing it against what comes next. So the benefits of a weapon are timely file change alerts. We store the data offsite, and the reason we do that is to keep your website tamper-proof. Because one thing malicious files do is disable the security plugins on your website as soon as they get in. And we call that tamper resistance. And then we also, since we generate logs, this is a security term, we can export the data over to a SIM, a Security Information Event Manager. So from a revenue point of view, we're subscription-based. We currently have a WordPress plugin that is available online to download, and we are in the public cloud, so when your data is stored offsite, it's stored on our public cloud servers at a price of $99 a year to cover those costs. All discounts are available. You can run more than one domain, as many as you want. And then we have a private cloud offering where you can deploy our difference engine on your own cloud so that you keep all of your metadata as opposed to it being to the public cloud. Next. So in marketing right now, we're just entering the marketing phase and ready to seed initial customer base through our private social networks. I don't know if they're private or not, they're public. the standard complement, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and we've got a social media console to manage all those in one place. And then we have the concept of the continuous campaign. And as you all know, you gotta have your blog posts up to date. We send out security emails. It's just a part of the industry. Periodic trend updates and SEO and SEM. And I like diagrams, so we research, build a strategy, cost it out, execute, evaluate, repeat, which is the continuous campaign. Our challenges are our initial marketing phase and the value proposition for WAPA. That's a big challenge for us. Establishing an initial customer base, which we're working on right now. And then of course to expand that base, leverage the customer base with enhancements once we get a foothold and grow. So in terms of things that we need input on our value proposition from as many folks as we can, and to be able to bounce that for the best message we can send out. We need leads, trial customers, and anybody who wants to help us on our enterprise strategy is also very welcome. Founders, Ted and I. Ted's a Duke Law guy, worked for the Army and intelligence, C-level execs, taking companies to liquidity, and former partner at Warren Van Allen and Nelson Mullins. I'm a career software engineer, an IT manager. I did my computer science work at Georgia Tech, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and cybersecurity geek. And you can get us at info@madtek.com. And questions?
So let me help you with your value proposition.
Here, let me give you a mic.
I use WordPress. I put the Shield plugin on, which has seemed to be very effective and is free. I also proxy through Cloudflare, which is free. So make the argument. Now I'm probably too small to be in your target market, but assume that I was large enough and brought you those questions. How would you convince me that that your tool is better than these things I'm getting for free?
Go ahead.
Are you familiar with what's called a zero-day attack?
Yes.
Actually, hold up, stand up, please, and use the mic so we can all hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you're familiar with what a zero-day attack is, you know that we all know that modern websites, and that's most of the WordPress sites, use a lot of plugins. One of the ways that we find that attackers are getting through endpoint security, which is what you're talking about, is through plugins that haven't been updated. We use WordFence, so we believe in that. We recently got, excuse me, an email from them that said, okay, there's a plugin out there, here's what it is. Right now, there are 16,000 websites that are vulnerable to this particular attack that we're seeing. Nobody knew what an answer was for it at that point. So even updating was not necessarily going to solve that. So I subscribe to the SBI cybersecurity bulletins because I had a background in doing this kind of stuff. And they will tell you, no website is hack-proof. People will find ways to get into your website if they want to. So if you're going to be fully protected, we give you, for example, I've got a website for a novel I wrote. First thing I do every morning is check that email to see what, if anything, changed. Then I go to my New York Times subscription email. One morning about a month ago, I got an email from the system that said 632 new files had been added, 172 had been deleted, over 150 had been changed. First thing I did was get in touch with this guy and say, what happened? Because I know the normal behavior on that website, and this was way outside of bounds. So I know within 24 hours if a hacker got into my website. If you ever, anybody here ever remediated or cleaned up a hacked website or had to pay for having it done, it's not cheap. I could ask how many hours or days it took to do that. But I know because we've had to do it. We've had situations where
That's one of the reasons that we developed the
we
product, because I used to host WordPress.
what we're doing. So both from a finding out early detection, because in the security business when I was in the Army, early detection is a key, because the longer a bad guy is in your website without you knowing about it, the more damage they can do. So did I answer your question?
No, but we'll take it offline.
It's a deep issue, okay?
So, from a value proposition point of view, the value is connected to whether you're sensitive to that. Your plugins that you use can be turned off if a malicious file gets on without you knowing it. And the question is, are you sensitive to that, or do you care about that? From our point of view, it's like, do I convince you that it's worth paying to know that? And that really is a challenge, because there's free file integrity monitors out there right now, and I can disable them. So is it worth it then to say, I want a tamper-proof file integrity monitor? Is it worth $100 a year, $99 a year? Well, can we make that proposition effectively? And folks like yourself are really helpful in, because you're using Cloudflare and other plugins, like we use WordFence. I can tamper with WordFence files, put stuff in them. WordFence will never know. I can effectively disable that. But because our stuff is off-site, you can't do that with this. It will tell you if something is wrong because it uses an external scanner to come in and then let you know. And it's really amazing to see what goes on your website, legitimate too. Keep in mind, it's really good to know what changes go on your website, whether they're bad guys or not.
But over here, Cloudflare is not just a plugin. I mean, Cloudflare, you're
It's a
changing
separate-
out your name servers, you're setting your servers through there, and Cloudflare is a I guess a big player now in terms of boosting security on websites, making sure people aren't making some of those decisions, and a lot of it is just standard everyday practice. I guess I came in a little late to the conversation, but I picked up some of it, and I work a lot in WordPress development. So I've also been I have a criminology background, and I do a lot of just protecting websites, and most of that is just the decisions you make, how you're running things. I can't see, to the point back there, I can't see why what you're offering is better than just running through Cloudflare and turning on security systems there.
Would you want to have a forensic history for your criminal investigation so that you do not only changes that went onto your website, or are you going to go back through backups and try to extract that? Let's just say you have to research a problem.
So I guess the product that I've seen you talk about hasn't been as much the forensic history. It's been around, like, how's it? It feels like I guess I came in late. So, okay, forensic history.
That's pretty much one of the things that's going on here. So when if you ever heard of a product called Tripwire, which has a file integrity monitor in it, one of the things you use Tripwire for is to, like, if your website gets hacked, how do you get all the bad guys? If they infiltrate, which I've seen, they can infiltrate hundreds of files in various places. So cleaning that site up is kind of hard, because now you got to go through and maybe touch every one of those files to find out what's in there and what's not. And having a file change history really helps to do that. So you could act, because trying to do a clean install of a WordPress site, all the plugins and everything from scratch, just to be sure, is something many of the clients that I used to host for is just really expensive and really hard to do, actually.
So you're targeting regular hacker targets more than anything. I mean, Cloudflare's got the Cloudflare has the basic everyday WordPress users, servers, that kind of thing. But people who are getting attacked every so often, or they've been attacked, are going to be receptive to that. If you haven't been attacked, it's kind of hard to make the sell without just scaring people.
That's absolutely. Yeah, you'll get eyebrows raised on anybody that's been hacked on WordPress because it scares them. And especially if they've got a shopping cart or something like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, our 3 initial target markets are websites that have been, owners of websites that have been hacked, people who have shopping carts, and what we call web doctors, aggregators, people who control lots of websites. Because we got into this because we were finding with websites that we were hosting that they were being attacked, and some of them successfully on a somewhat regular basis. So WordPress website aggregators understand the pain that we're talking about when one of them gets hacked.
I would also say that we're focusing on WordPress right now just because of the size of that market, because you have a plugin out there. But we run on any PHP site, whether it's custom built, Drupal, Joomla. So if you've got a mixture of PHP and that sort of thing, you can use this.
My suggestion would be to raise your rates way up and go after bigger targets. But
Yeah, the enterprise
right now you're competing with just
we're competing with 3 guys, no question about it. And we came out with price first, but one of the good things, the feedback you get here is, strategy in terms of we've got to get a good customer base first, and whether they're paying or free, that's still on the table for us. Because we could offer the service for free, but it
I have a question for all of you. How many of us have information technology backgrounds? Okay, quite a few. All right, great, thank you. The reason that I ask is because those of you who've been in this industry know that pricing is the hardest thing you ever have to do in it. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk with you guys.
Hey guys, did you consider, like you were talking about the freemium strategy, like kind of going out and just getting as many people to use your product as possible? Personally, when I try to buy stuff like this online, I want to go after whatever has the most feedback online, most people are using, and then go after that. I don't want to like do too much research, you know? Or go after the big people, like he's saying, go after the big money.
We can do that at the same time. There's also interesting product structures with regard to how often do you get a report, right? If you have a free offering, like you go to WordFence now, you might get a report back on what's changed on your website every 2 or 3 months or something like that. You want it every week? What if you want it every day? How about every 6 hours? So if you go down that way, then you see these free pricing plugins on WordPress.org. They'll have a scale model like that where you've got what you're talking about, and then for the extra enhancements, you go up. So we're working with that right now, but we don't.
Yeah, I was thinking after you start to dominate the market share, then you can start to charge, you know, like completely take over.
Yeah, and we can still do that. I mean, that target 99 is where we'd like to get. You know, when you look at this market, the size of it, you get 10 to 15,000 paying customers, then you reach a critical mass. But you got to get customers first. I agree. So we're working with that.
So, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So, if you were going after the enterprise, like you mentioned, right? What size companies would you be going after, and what competitors would you be up against in the enterprise market?
Well, you might be up against a product called Tripwire. Then in the enterprise market, there's a thing called a web application firewall. So next generation firewalls are now operating at what we call layers of the stack, 7 layers of the ISO stack. And this operates at a web site level. So in the cloud, so a lot of enterprises moved into the cloud right now, and that's a big security problem for them that they're undertaking and doing all the security controls. So having a file integrity monitor that works at the layer 7 of the stack, which is the web application layer, that they control the metadata instead of going into our public cloud is, and that's why we have the SIEM, Security Information Event Manager plugin to go to that, because enterprise people aggregate all of this data that comes from all of these sources into their SIEM, and then they have a bunch of guys constantly monitoring that. So that's our play into the enterprise market. In terms of competitors, web application file integrity manager is pretty new. Web application firewalls have been around now a little bit, and they're more mature. And so even though if you put a hardware firewall in, or say Amazon, and you go out and figure all of their network security, their virtual firewall stuff, still you would put a web application firewall in just to protect that website. And that's our play in that space in terms of web application. We focus there for that reason, because up and down the stack, there's a lot of mature players that sell into like Splunk, that sell into the enterprise market. There's a bunch of them. I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah, pass it back to Nick.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. This makes it easier for those of us who don't have acute hearing.
Fair enough. All right. Gonna work.
Takes a bit.
There we go, sorry. You mentioned, for us in this space, we know how hard it is to manage a hack and clean up afterwards. And the 3 targets you mentioned were sites that have been hacked, people with shopping carts, and then website aggregators. So people who have been hacked, they obviously know the cost. So, if you come in and say, hey, it's only $99 a year, it's obviously a lot cheaper. But for the shopping carts and the aggregators, are you sort of trying to approach it like here's an insurance policy for you? And obviously you're not going to pay out if there's a hack, but here's something that will help protect you for slightly cheaper than what could happen, because I just personal experience, we're finding it's kind of hard to get people to realize the value prop of like any insurance product. It's hard for someone to realize the cost of what they're looking at, whereas if you can sort of say, hey, if you do this you'll get more money, that's oftentimes a little bit easier to get people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah, one thing that we thought about, I don't know if you've ever heard of a product called WooCommerce, but that's the leading shopping cart that runs on WordPress. We actually use it ourselves. So I've written WordPress or WooCommerce plugins, and they dominate the shopping cart market in WordPress. I don't know how many they got. It's in the millions. And again, that crowd is going to be a little more sensitive to security than just say, I'm just running a vanilla blog thing. So having a plugin that's specific to WooCommerce enables you to do, and WooCommerce does invite developers to come in and attack and enhance their product. They've been very successful with that. So there's a ton of WooCommerce plugins out there that they're all pretty much shopping cart based, like Authorize.net, all those guys, or payment processing and that sort of thing. And we're looking at how to get that value proposition into WooCommerce as a kind of a narrow wedge to get to what it is that you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, this is why we're asking for this help.
Yeah,
Council, one more question, please, Jacob.
Sure, along the same lines.
Takes it a second.
Alright,
Marketing. You're talking about value proposition. You've got 3 segments. Have you thought of, well, you have thought about sort of the barriers?
Yeah.
There's a journey that needs to take place, and I would suggest you think about that journey. So if you have people who don't understand or think about the risk, part of it is education, but you can't market unless you understand sort of, okay, what information do I need to provide? Because a natural thing will be, okay, you told me something is wrong, what do I do with that? So you've got 3 different stories you need to tell because you have 3 segments you've identified. I would start there as far as the marketing.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your response there, Jess?
Oh, I was waiting on Ted.
Oh, okay.
Both of you have identified something that we have in fact been thinking about a lot. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to talk with you, because I agree with you that when you're talking about the shopping cart segment, it's a risk problem. And one of the reasons that it's a risk problem is because the stakes are so much higher if you have a shopping cart. Putting on the hat that I used to wear when I was a lawyer in a big firm for years, we are approaching a point where if you have a shopping cart and it gets hacked and you lose PII, personally identifying information, you now have reporting responsibilities in every state in the United States. The costs run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to deal with that issue. So I think for that segment, it's unfortunate, but a lot of marketing is about fear. And that is a big exposure. It's an interesting question with respect to the website aggregators. If there is technology out there that they can be using that will give them real-time information about what's going on a website that they're managing, and they're not taking advantage of that technology, I can tell you that what's going to happen over the course of the next few years is going to start to hurt.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Jess.
all.
Fantastic.
Thank you. So, awesome presentation. We appreciate that very much. And our question for you is, going to really put you on the spot here now, brother. What did you glean from this conversation and this feedback and these questions? And the next, take a minute, just tell us what your takeaway at this point in time, what's foremost in front of your mind, you and then Ted.
Please.
Well, first of all, it's nice. I wasn't sure when we came here if we'd have any WordPress folks. Okay, and so it's real important to me and us to actually hear it directly from the WordPress guys. And, you know, Cloudflare, talking about other things like Cloudflare, how that's used. I can't tell you how valuable it is. Because I'm hearing it from people I don't know who run these sites, you know, in different capacities. No 2 sites are the same in many cases. And maybe if you're in the shopping carts, that you'll be in a big group there. So that's you know, helping us look at and just face, all right, do we need to do this free offering, and then graduate into then what can we charge for? You know, based on the models. What's your name again?
Jim.
Jim, based on a model that Jim was giving us. To hear you say it, it's one thing for us to be thinking about it, but it's another for you to tell us that too, straight. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, 2 things for me. Your comment, we haven't thought enough about that to the point that we're actually going to go out with it free, but I'm starting to think, yeah, that's probably because this market is so huge, but a lot of it is consumer side, and that's the space that we're probably going to have to go into free. on the higher end side that a couple of people mentioned from an enterprise point of view, there are some things that we're doing strategically that I would not want to talk about in an open forum without an NDA being involved. But to get into those spaces is a different kind of sell. One that my background, when I was in Seattle, that's what we were really doing. So I understand a little bit about that. I used to close deals with the Fortune 500 companies. But the comments that both of you made really, really helpful. Thank you, because hadn't really spent enough time thinking about the different entry points for those three market segments. That's great. That's a huge help. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ted. Let's give him a round again.